option. Is that an accurate statement?
The gentleman is not incorrect, because Republicans believe that public option doesn't bring about competition. I think both of us, Mr. Speaker, agree that competition is what is needed to bring down prices, to increase access. We believe that real competition comes from the ability for individuals to choose not just from 2 or 3 insurance companies that may have 50% of market share. We believe real competition comes from the ability for an individual to choose from 1,000 different insurance plans for that individual or his or her family. That's where we begin to, that's where we can agree that competition brings down prices. We don't believe public option brings competition. And that is the essence. The end shouldn't be public option.
Will the gentleman yield?
I will yield when I finish. And I would further say, again, to the gentleman's representation about where the American public is because of a poll that was taken this week, I think there have been numerous articles written on debunking the methodology behind that poll. In fact, the question when posed, do you support a public option to compete with private insurance, is and would yield a different response than if you were to ask, would you support a public option that replaces the current health care coverage that you have? And, Mr. Speaker, this is our position. We believe that if you introduce a government that also makes the rules as a competitor, that there will no longer be an even playing field for competition, that you are on a path to single-payer health care in this country. That is the difference, Mr. Speaker. But I don't think that the gentleman is correct in his saying it is fruitless to have discussions surrounding health care because we have that difference of opinion, and I yield.
I thank the gentleman for yield. The gentleman misstates what I said. I said discussions regarding a public option when I had talked to nobody on your side who was for a public option. It seems pointless, from my perspective, to talk to somebody about how a public option ought to be configured if, as you have just stated, you're not for a public option. Therefore, a discussion about a public option does, in fact, to me, seem pointless. Furthermore, let me say this. The gentleman was here when we adopted, I believe you were here, when we adopted the current Part D of the Medicare program. The gentleman will recall in that bill you provided for a public option. You provided for a public option to provide competition and availability of a health care prescription drug coverage. Now, you provided it in the event that there was no private sector, or at least not more than one, available in any one segment of our society. So I tell the gentleman, in your own bill, that I think you supported. I don't know that off the top of my head, but my presumption is you supported, or certainly the overwhelming majority of your party supported, with very few Democratic votes, and that provided for an option of a public option.
I would say to the gentleman there are a lot of differences to the construct of the MMA, the legislation passed that created Part D,
I agree with that.
than what is being discussed today.
I agree with that, but it did provide, provide for the option of a public option.
Well, I reclaim my time, Mr. Speaker. So I would say if the gentleman is of that opinion that there is an ability to discuss things surrounding health care, then why is it that we continue to see closed-door negotiations? So the gentleman points to the different options, public options or versions thereof being discussed in the 3 different committees in the House. Are those the public options that the gentleman and his side have whipped and are being discussed now behind closed doors? Because, frankly, any imposition of a public plan is going to cost taxpayers and small businesses money. And I would certainly think the gentleman would share the notion that Republicans should be involved, and it would be of concern to both Republicans and Democrats throughout this country that the American people would want their right to know being realized in these discussions, which is my point as to why is it that we can't hear what these three different public options are and what the differences are therein. And I yield.
I thank the gentleman for yielding, and I would repeat, you know exactly what the options are. As I just told you, they're online. They've been discussed. They were discussed extensively in the committee on television. Surely the gentleman would not want the Speaker or anybody else to be misunderstood as the fact that your party doesn't have discussions among yourselves as to what options you want to pursue. And if that's your representation, frankly, I tell my friend, I don't think many people are going to believe that.
No.
Are we having discussions? We are. I don't believe either you individually or anybody that I've talked to on your side of the aisle is for a public option. We are discussing how a public option ought to be configured. You don't believe there ought to be a public option, period, for the reasons you've stated. We understand that. We have a difference of opinion on that. But if you're not for public option, now if you're for public option on some configuration, then if you would submit that to me, I'd be glad to talk to you about it.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the gentleman. I mean, we are always and have continued to represent that we are ready to work with him, his leadership, and the other side in crafting and affecting positive health care reform. Again, shutting down discussions is not a route to achieve that could fairly produce what the American people want. I don't think it could produce fairly or unfairly what the American people want if it is going to be about my way or the highway as far as health care discussions and a bill that passes on this floor. So with that, I thank the gentleman, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back my time.